this movie was made during the haze of the '80s. Not my brightest moment in history. This was kind of as the bulb was dimming, if you will, for a while, and then my gosh, it sparked back up again. But Corey Haim and I, who I know loosely, him and I did a film together in the late '80s called The Lost Boys, and that film was quite haphazard in our meeting. Basically, what happened was I had been talked to about doing this film, The Lost Boys, from Richard Donner, and Richard Donner brought me in to meet with Joel Schumacher. Joel Schumacher and I hit it off pretty well. He liked my my acting skills and asked me to go and do my homework and try and brush up on a character that was kind of like Rambo-esque, you know. So I created this character for Lost Boys, and once I got the part, they told me that this other kid named Corey was also going to be in the movie. And I'd been hearing rumors about this kid floating around Hollywood. As a matter of fact, we were both up for Lucas and we were both up for Goonies. He was up for my part in Goonies and I was up for his part in Lucas. So it was a fair game by this point. You know, it was 0-0. Home team wins. And we met on the set. Or I'm sorry, not on the set. We met, one day he called up my answering machine and said, "Hey, dude, this is Corey Haim, man. We're we're gonna be hanging out together, and we're gonna be doing this movie called Lost Boys, man. So we should like get together and chill, you know." So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So we got together actually with our dads, and we went down to Venice Beach and we played a little football. Once the film was over, we of course had to do many public appearances and things like that together. And suddenly this fad started, if you will, the Coreys, you know. And we were kind of, you know, both a little skeptical of that whole thing because it was like, who are these Corey guys anyway that everybody keeps talking about and what's so cool about them? Besides that, we were pretty much like, you know, we wanted to stay individuals. We wanted to do our own things. And we didn't want, you know, our lifelong careers to be summarized by a lump of, you know, these two guys a la carte. So anyway, we, basically decided that we weren't going to work together again. It was a nice experience, you know, enjoy your paycheck, I'll see you later kind of thing. And I had been auditioning for License to Drive. I really thought the script was very funny. Natalie! Hey, Natalie! It was just very broad. There was a lot in the script when I first read it, and I remember thinking, boy, that part of Les, that would be perfect for me right now. That's the obvious next move in my career, to do a film where I really carry the film as opposed to, you know, having it rest on some other guy's shoulders, you know. So I auditioned rigorously for the part of Les, and got a call from my agent one day, and they said, well, we have good news and bad news. I said, what's the bad news? They said, well, the bad news is, well, you're not going to get the part of Les in License to Drive. And I said, well, then fuck them. You know, just forget them all. I'm getting out of the business. They said, but the good news is that you did get the film. They just want you to play the second fiddle guy again to Corey Haim. And I was like, you know what, this is blasphemy. This is an outrage, cursed producers. And I was just furious about it. But I accepted the gig anyway, because that's what actors do. Anyway, so it ended up that here we were once again in the boat, working together and being the two Coreys once again. And it really was, you know, as much as I'm making light of it all, I mean, it really was kind of that haphazard. It just, we didn't really know. I knew that he was auditioning for the film, and he knew that I was auditioning for the film, but, you know, he was kind of always told that I was auditioning for the other part, and I was always told he was auditioning for the other part, and it would never be a conflict. And it certainly wasn't a conflict when we ended up working on the film together. We were shooting at a high school, and as we were shooting at this high school, the school was actually still in session. So they would be kind of standing purged at the gates, watching us, you know, screaming as we would walk back and forth from the set to our trailers. And I remember this one day in particular when the school bells let out and our trailers were parked right there in front of the school, and we had to have security, you know, walk us from the set over to where the trailers were, so we could, I think we were taking school together or something in one of the trailers, and the fans basically surrounded. It was like the floodgates open, and these fans just surrounded the trailers, and they were sitting there rocking the trailers, screaming and shouting, and everybody holding up pictures from their teen magazines, and just trying to get a piece of us. I mean, it was insane. Probably 1,500 kids surrounding the trailer, and we're stuck in there. And when you're on a set, I mean, generally, like in those days, they didn't really have a lot of security on the set. Maybe like one old guy who watched the trailers at night or something, but they certainly weren't, ready for anything like this. And it was nuts. I mean, it was unbelievable. This kind of Beatlemania thing going on with Corey and I, which just had started, and we didn't really notice it starting, but it had, and then it kind of went for the next, 7 years or something with the two of us as the Coreys, But that was kind of the first dose of superstardom of like, wow, okay, we got to deal with this now. But it was great at the same time. I mean, we had an awesome time. Those were the best memories, the stuff where we got to see the fans and be there with the people, and they were kind of right there in our face and watching the film being produced and things like that. The darker side of it all was, just my own inconsistencies and being a teenager, trying to do a movie like this. I mean, teenage films are a lot harder than they look.
We're gonna be locked up in a cell with men who murdered and raped and robbed convenience stores.
Will you take a pill or something? Will you just relax? Nothing's gonna happen to us. We're juveniles.
Nice call, Dean.
This was a weird period because it was when I was, I was rough and rowdy teenager. I was hanging out a lot with Sam Kinison, who spent a lot of time on the set in my dressing room. Had a lot of crazy parties on the set and off the set. Corey was, in outer space during most of it. So it was kind of an interesting experience in and of itself for that regard.
This Mercedes has a dead battery.
Heather was always the consummate professional. She was beautiful. She was gorgeous. She was very, very talented actress. And, it was kind of a thing between Corey and I of, who's going to go out with her first. Even though she played his girlfriend in the movie, I believe that I'm the only one that actually dated her. And it was just one date. It was one date. I took her to an awards show, I think towards the end of the filming. And I think it was like an American Music Awards or something along those lines. And we had a great time together, but it was kind of one of those things where, you go out on a date in the middle of filming and then you realize the next day, like, okay, now we got to go back to work and, like, look at each other as work people. And, one of those kind of big lessons, like, not really best to date your coworkers, So I learned that one at an early age. But she was great. And I've seen her since, and, we're still friendly, and she's a very talented young lady.
Let me take a picture of it. Forget it. Don't you think you should let me take a picture of it? Okay, Charles. Okay. All right. Say cheese.
Michael Montessori, who played Charles, he was, very good, very easy, and quick on his instincts. The thing about him is, again, going back to Corey and I being so kind of half-cracked during the whole movie, it was kind of like we just weren't taking it all very seriously at that point, because it was kind of like, this whole, Corey mania thing was happening, and we were just kind of stuck in the eye of the hurricane. And I think part of it for us was, keep everything as light and humorous as possible on and off the set. So we never took anything seriously. We were constantly, doing practical jokes on each other and everybody else, Greg Beeman. And poor Michael, who's stuck in these scenes with us, is very professional, taking it all very seriously, always had his stuff memorized and, to the book. And, and then we'd come in and blah, 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 and we'd change the whole scene.
Ignore it.
Bye, Mom.
Be careful.
Hey, guys! Hey, guys! Where you going?
Poor Michael would have to try and catch up with us. And I remember one day he said to me, I want you to know that I'm really excited that I got this role. And I just wanted you to know before it's over that the reason that I'm here is because I respect your work so much. And I remember feeling like this big because it was just like, gosh, you take it that seriously? Oh my God. That means I should have been taking it more seriously. You know, it was kind of one of those wake-up calls of like, wow, I guess everybody else really, sees this as a job. It was really a very talented, wonderful cast. Carol Kane, of course, is genius. Richard Masur, who's great in everything he does. Nina Shamasko, who's great. We were very lucky to have such a great cast to work with, and we were like the clowns, if you will. You know, we would come in with our, red noses and our big shoes, and kind of like da 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 da, and everybody else is there like, okay, today's scene we've got to take seriously, and we're gonna, and we're just like, okay, what's going on? When do we get a break? What's up?
I apologize for everything, but that ride was definitely worth the price of admission. I mean, that makes up for a whole life of boredom.
Looking back on those things, you see yourself in the past as opposed to who you are today, and you go, I wish I could have been a little bit more dedicated to the film itself, or to the other actors, or anything like that.
Dean, I can't help wondering, is it ever gonna get that good for me?
Anderson, the only difference between you and that greaseball is that he has a license and you don't. Whoa! Scumbag!
Greg was great. Greg would be like, well, okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to have the car park here. You guys are going to come out. You're going to do your lines of dialogue. You're going to stop. You're going to give each other a look, and then you're going to move into the restaurant. Oh, okay, great, Greg. Thanks. That sounds great. We'd get out, jump on top of the car, start beating each other up, roll off together, and then go into the restaurant. I mean, just, nothing that he would suggest. And we'd just be like, yeah, no, this is funnier, though. No, it's good. Really, it is. Just go with us. It's good. And there was, I'm sure we had to drive him crazy. We had to drive him crazy. But, through it all, he was a consummate professional, and he was just a very good, easygoing attitude. I don't think there's any way that film could have been finished if he didn't have the laid-back, easygoing attitude that he had, because there was so much of this kind of hyper energy coming from us all the time that, we needed that kind of grounding, kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever you guys say, sure, and it was a nice blend.
That thing in your wallet, that's no ordinary piece of paper. That is a driver's license.
The speech, the big kind of spiritual speech that I give last, where I say,
and it's not only an automobile license, it is a license to live, a license to be free, to go wherever, whenever, and with whomever you choose.
People never expected me to come in knowing my lines or prepared or anything like that, because I would really just make it up as I went along. And this was one of those where it was like, Greg Beeman was emphatic, and he was like, you've got to have this memorized. You've got to do this one for me. I mean, it's a very important speech, and it's the pinnacle of the movie, and it really all comes down to this, and, you got to give this to me. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. And I know they were just all dreading what was going to happen when I walked onto the set. And, of course, I actually took the time and memorized it word for word and made it perfect for him, because I knew that a lot was resting on that one. And so when I came in and I did it in like 2 takes or something, and Gray was just like thrilled. He was just jumping up and down like, oh my God, look how easy that was. Why can't we always work like this? Well, because we just don't. The car thing, where it slides into that perfect parking spot in front of the pizza place, which we were just talking about. Because I remember it being one of those things where when Greg explained it to us, we thought, man, that's so ridiculous. I mean, what, you're going to make the car fly off the hill, do like 5 flips, and then land on its feet, and then slide perfectly into a parking spot without any damage on it? That is just the most ludicrous, unheard of thing I've ever heard. It's just, it would never work. And he just kept going, trust me. It's a great stunt. It's got to work. It's going to be. And I remember how they did it is, it was several cuts. They did the flipping of the car first.
Oh! Let's stop the car!
Uh-oh.
And then they did one final flip of the car where it kind of came down like this way and then slid in. And the way they did it is they had a cable underneath the car, which came up from the ground in the parking lot, and it actually the cable pulled the car perfectly into spot. And I remember watching it going, well, okay, I get it. That's pretty cool. Let's see how it all cuts together. And I remember seeing the film and thinking, wow, that was great. And it's got a huge laugh right when that happened. So obviously, Greg knew what he was doing, and we should have just shut the fuck up.
Would you like some champagne? It might help.
No thanks. I already had some tonight.
When they first cut the film, we got a lot of complaints from MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, who said that we were glamorizing drunk driving by, you know, the fact that Les drinks and he drives around for the rest of the night. It's like, you got this kid drinking alcohol and then getting in a car and driving another kid around who he throws in the trunk. And, you know, I mean, it was pretty controversial.
Hi, how you doing?
So we went back and we did reshoots.
Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
You call yourself a friend?
Shortly after that, we got to see an early cut of it. And I know that I was just very impressed with Greg's work.
Whoa! Vito, help!
And very impressed with the comic timing of it all.
Hi, Les.
And thought, you know, for all the bullshit we put everybody through on this film, it all turned out for the best because it really is a funny film.
Not too bad for a kid without his license, huh?
And when I look back on it now, it really is one of my fond memories of my career. I mean, it was, you know, it's a very funny film. It's a cute story. I think it's something that everybody can relate to.
You mustn't fuck with the Department of Motor Vehicles, Mr. Anderson.
Every kid can relate to it, certainly, because everybody's been there with that frustration trying to get your driver's license for the first time. As a matter of fact, Corey and I were both trying to obtain our driver's licenses during the making of the film.
You have failed.
So it was kind of life imitating art and art imitating life.
My dreams never get this good. My fantasies never get this good, man! And this is only the beginning!
We were kids in the middle of, you know, the thunderstorm and just, we were just having a great time.